1980s were supposed to suffocate American muscle. Emissions regulations tightened year after year. Corporate fuel economy standards penalized displacement. Insurance companies treated horsepower as a financial liability. On paper, performance was being engineered into extinction. But instead of disappearing, it evolved. Engineers adapted under pressure. Turbochargers replaced cubic inches. Electronic fuel injection restored precision. Platforms became lighter, more aerodynamic, and more reactive. Official horsepower numbers often look conservative, but what happened beyond the brochure told a different story. In this video, we're covering the 7 deadliest muscle cars of the 80s that still terrify drivers. Machines that survived regulation, adapted under constraint, and quietly returned danger to American roads. Because in the 1980s, instability didn't always come from massive displacement. It came from power delivery, from chassis balance at the limit, from mechanical reactions that offered no electronic safety net. These were cars that demanded anticipation, and when anticipation failed, correction windows were small. Number 7, 1984, Dodge Daytona Turbo Z. The 1984 Dodge Daytona Turbo Z broke from traditional muscle architecture. No rear-wheel drive, no V8. Instead, it relied on a turbocharged 2.2-liter inline-4 producing roughly 42 horsepower, delivered through the front wheels. At approximately 2,600 pounds, the Daytona was light. Off-boost, it felt manageable and predictable. But once the turbocharger built pressure, torque arrived abruptly. The surge hit the front axle without transition, forcing the front tires to steer and accelerate simultaneously. Torque steer became unavoidable under heavy throttle. The steering wheel could tug sharply depending on road surface and boost timing. The change from calm to aggressive was not progressive, it was sudden. 0 to 60 mph landed in the mid 8-second range. Straight line speed wasn't the real issue. The danger surfaced mid-corner. Apply throttle too early while exiting a bend and boost could overwhelm front-end traction instantly. In rain or on uneven pavement, the margin narrowed even further. The Turbo Z did not overpower drivers with numbers. It destabilized them with timing and imbalance. Number 6, 1982 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 Indy 500 pace car. The third-generation Camaro marked a structural reset for Chevrolet. The 1982 Z28 Indy 500 pace car was lighter, lower, and more aerodynamic than its predecessor. Under the hood sat a 5.0-liter crossfire injection V8 rated at approximately 165 horsepower. The figure seemed modest. The chassis was sharper than expected. Weight reduction improved steering response and transitional balance. The car felt alert and responsive. Yet the solid rear axle remained, paired with early 80s tire compounds that offered limited grip at the threshold. Acceleration to 60 mph hovered around 8 seconds. The instability emerged when pushed. Mid-corner bumps unsettled the rear suspension quickly. Lift off the throttle abruptly and weight transferred forward, reducing rear traction and inviting oversteer. Without traction control or stability systems, every driver input translated directly into mechanical reaction. The quick steering ratio amplified corrections. Panic escalated slides. The Z28 represented performance returning to prominence, but it also amplified mistakes. Number 5, 1983 Ford Mustang GT. The 1983 Mustang GT restored legitimacy to the 5.0-liter high-output V8 with approximately 75 horsepower in a Fox-body chassis weighing just over 3,000 pounds. With a 5-speed manual transmission, 0 to 60 mph dropped into the mid-7-second range. Torque delivery was immediate and strong for the era. The car felt raw, mechanical, direct. The Fox platform's structural limits appeared under load. Hard launches produced axle hop as the live rear axle struggled to manage torque. Uneven pavement intensified instability, causing lateral rear movement during acceleration. Cornering revealed the Mustang's sensitivity to weight transfer. Enter aggressively and lift mid-corner, and the rear could rotate quickly as weight shifted forward. The chassis communicated clearly, but forgiveness was limited. The Mustang's affordability amplified its volatility. It placed genuine V8 torque in the hands of drivers who often underestimated the platform's balance. It did not need extreme horsepower to become unstable. It required overconfidence and imperfect surfaces. Number 4, 1985 Pontiac Trans Am. By 1985, the Pontiac Trans Am had evolved into a sharper and more technically refined machine. Tuned port injection pushed its 5.0-liter V8 to approximately 205 horsepower, delivering stronger mid-range torque and improved throttle response. 0 to 60 mph fell into the high 6-second range, placing it among the quicker American performance cars of the mid-decade. Aerodynamic improvements enhanced stability at highway speeds. The car felt planted under steady acceleration, but the solid rear axle remained central to its behavior. Under hard throttle exiting corners, traction could break abruptly. Cold pavement or worn tires reduced the safety margin further. Once oversteer began, recovery required precise countersteer and controlled throttle modulation. Braking systems improved compared to earlier F-body models, yet repeated aggressive stops could still introduce fade. The Trans Am encouraged drivers to carry speed confidently, but the chassis operated close to its mechanical limits. Push too far, and the response was immediate. The 1980s did not erase muscle cars. They rebuilt them into lighter, sharper machines operating near the edge of balance. And as this list continues, that edge becomes even more unforgiving. If there's an 80s muscle car you believe deserves a place among these, share it in the comments. And for more documented muscle car history, factory performance legends, and the machines that define their decades, subscribe and stay with the series. Number 3, 1986, Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. By 1986, Pontiac had refined the third-generation F-body into something sharper, tighter, and faster than it had been at the start of the decade. The Firebird Trans Am carried a tuned port-injected 5.0-liter V8, producing around 190 to 205 horsepower depending on specification. On paper, the numbers appeared controlled. On the road, the story was different. Tuned port injection broadened the torque curve and sharpened throttle response. Power delivery felt smoother than earlier carbureted setups, but it also arrived with more urgency in the mid-range. 0 to 60 mph times hovered around 7 seconds, placing it firmly in legitimate performance territory for the mid-1980s. The chassis felt planted during steady driving. Aerodynamic improvements reduced lift at speed. Steering response was direct and quick for the era. But underneath that composure remained a live rear axle and suspension geometry that could only mask its limits for so long. Push the Trans Am into a decreasing radius corner and the weight transfer became immediate. Lift off the throttle mid-corner and the rear could rotate abruptly as forward weight shift reduced rear grip. There were no electronic corrections, no stability systems to intervene, only mechanical grip and driver reaction. Tire compounds of the era provided limited forgiveness once adhesion was exceeded. When the rear stepped out, it did so decisively. Recovery demanded calm inputs and measured countersteer. Panic made it worse. The 1986 Trans Am did not feel reckless, it felt capable. That capability invited speed. And speed, without restraint, exposed the mechanical ceiling quickly. Number 2, 1989, Chevrolet Camaro IROC-Z. By 1989, the Camaro IROC-Z had evolved into the most complete version of the third-generation platform. Equipped with the optional 5.7-liter tuned port injection V8, output climbed to approximately 240 horsepower and 345 lb-ft of torque. For the late 1980s, those numbers were serious. 0 to 60 mph approached 6 seconds. Quarter-mile performance moved into the low 14-second range. On smooth pavement, the IROC-Z felt composed and deliberate. Suspension refinements reduced body roll. Wider tires improved lateral grip. The car finally looked as quick as it was. But the foundation remained unchanged. A solid rear axle still managed torque delivery. Under heavy throttle over imperfect pavement, the rear could step sideways instantly. If one tire lost grip momentarily, the entire axle reacted. Mid-corner throttle adjustments required discipline. Lift abruptly and weight transferred forward, lightening the rear and increasing the likelihood of rotation. Add uneven asphalt or a patch of moisture, and correction windows narrowed rapidly. The steering was sharper than earlier F-bodies, but it still required measured input. The car rewarded smooth driving. It punished hesitation. The IROC-Z represented the peak of naturally aspirated third-generation Camaro performance. It was faster, tighter, and more capable than its predecessors. But the closer it moved toward genuine high-performance territory, the more exposed its traditional architecture became. Acceleration had improved dramatically. Chassis evolution had not fully caught up. Number 1, 1987 Buick GNX. Then came the outlier. The 1987 Buick GNX did not rely on V8 displacement or flamboyant styling. It wore black paint, subtle badging, and a functional hood vent. Underneath sat a turbocharged 3.8-liter V6 officially rated at 2076 horsepower and 360 lb-ft of torque. Those numbers were conservative. Independent testing revealed 0 to 60 mph times in the low 5-second range. Quarter-mile passes fell into the high 12s. In 1987, that placed the GNX among the quickest production cars in America. faster than many sports cars that cost far more. The danger began with boost. Turbo lag created a brief pause after throttle application. Then the Garrett turbocharger built pressure and torque arrived with force. The surge could overwhelm rear traction even at highway speeds. Full throttle from a rolling start required precision. ASC McLaren reinforced the rear suspension and modified torque arm geometry to manage axle movement. Wider wheels and performance tires attempted to contain the output, but physics remained unchanged. A mid-size rear-wheel drive chassis originally engineered for comfort was now managing supercar-level straight-line acceleration. Under heavy boost, the front end lightened noticeably. Steering feel was adequate but not razor-sharp. Braking performance, while improved, could not fully match the engine's appetite for acceleration during repeated high-speed runs. The GNX's most unsettling trait was contrast. It did not look unstable. It did not sound violent at idle. It built speed quietly, then aggressively. Drivers unfamiliar with turbocharged torque curves often misjudged the transition from calm to overwhelming. The 1980s were defined by restriction. The GNX proved restriction could produce innovation, and innovation could produce something even more dangerous. The decade that was meant to erase muscle cars rebuilt them into sharper, lighter, more technical machines. Turbochargers replaced displacement. Fuel injection replaced carburetors. Weight reduction replaced brute force. But electronic safety systems had not yet arrived to protect drivers from their own decisions. These 7 cars operated close to their mechanical limits. When grip was exceeded, correction relied entirely on the person behind the wheel. They were not perfect, they were not forgiving. And that is precisely why they remain respected decades later. If there's an 80s muscle car that still deserves recognition among these, leave it in the comments. And for more factory performance history, outlaw legends, and the machines that shaped American speed, subscribe and stay with the series.